They did not raise him with hymns. They did not whisper his name into the wind. They did not tell the stars about the child born without love. Ares came into the world with clenched fists, and no one opened theirs to meet him. This is God and demon, where we do not worship what the gods built. We search for what they buried. Hera created him alone, not with affection, but with fury. She wanted a god to rival Athena, but what she birthed was not strategy. It was fire. It screamed, it clawed, it reached for warmth and received only distance. The child did not sleep, not because he was divine, but because no dream could soothe what had no origin in tenderness. This is God and demon, where we do not worship what the gods built. We search for what they buried. Ares was buried before he ever stood. He grew in Olympus like a weed, uninvited, unwanted. While the halls echoed with laughter and golden names, he learned to listen to silence, to find rhythm in rejection, to carve purpose from absence. The gods didn't fear him, not at first. They pitied him, mocked him, until one day he fought back and they bled. He wasn't elegant like Apollo or wise like Athena. He was raw, violent, too loud, too much. But pain made him focused, and neglect made him sharp. He did not speak in poetry. He screamed in clarity, and war listened. Mortals heard his name not in temples, but in the gap between battle cries. He became the god of war, not because he chose it, but because it was the only language anyone ever listened to. They cheered him only when blood spilled, only when cities burned. But when the war was over, when the fire dimmed, they turned away again. They always turned away. And so he gave them what they expected: the monster, the savage, the weapon. He wrapped rage around his heart like armor, so no one would see it bleed. He sharpened his silence into a blade and wore the title they threw at him like chains: God of War. But gods are born from belief, and his belief was forged in abandonment. So he didn't fight for Olympus. He fought to feel. He fought to stop remembering the day he reached out and no one took his hand. He fought because it was the only time the world looked back. Because even if they cursed his name, at least they spoke it. And in that brutal, sacred noise, he felt something almost like love. Almost. There were moments, rare and fragile, when the rage quieted, not because it faded, but because it was exhausted. Ares would stand in the aftermath of war, among broken spears and nameless corpses, and he would wonder, not about victory, not about glory, but about meaning. He never asked mortals to fight for him. They did that on their own. He never promised salvation, only consequence. And yet, they called for him. Before the first blade left its sheath, before the first war drum struck the air, they summoned the god they hated, because they needed someone else to carry the weight of their blood, and he carried it, not with pride, but with resignation, because if he didn't, no one would. Ares walked battlefields like a priest through fire, anointing the ground with pain, baptizing the sky in screams. And in return, he felt something close to peace, because the noise inside him matched the chaos around him. There was no mask to wear in war, no pretense of civility, just raw, human need. But peace never lasted. Even when the blades stopped singing, the silence was never gentle. It came with ghosts, with the weight of faces he never knew, but could never forget. They lingered in the blood on his hands, in the way his steps slowed when he walked through ruined cities. Children without fathers, wives without names. And still, they offered him sacrifice, as if blood was the only language they believed he could understand. And maybe it was, but once, only once, he met someone who didn't fear him, not a god, not a warrior, a mortal, a woman who healed where others destroyed. She tended to the wounded without asking who they fought for. She didn't pray to him. She didn't run. She looked at him as if he were human. And for a while, he stayed close. He watched how she placed broken bones back into place, how her hands stitched flesh with gentleness he had never known. She smiled once, at him, not with seduction, not with worship, but with recognition. And in that smile, something shattered. He realized he didn't know how to smile back, because no one had ever shown him how. The next time war came, he disappeared into it, not to fight, but to hide, because the thought of being seen was more terrifying than being hated. And when he returned, the village was gone. Ash, blood, silence. He found her body among the ruins, hands still outstretched towards someone she could not save. A child, maybe. A hope. He stood there for hours, not moving, not breathing. And when he finally screamed, it wasn't for vengeance. It was for all the things he would never get to say, for all the chances war had taken from him, for the one person who dared to see the god behind the fury and loved him anyway. They called him back, not with prayers, but with war, because mortals always forget the cost of the gods they invoke. And Olympus remembered only when they needed him. They sent word through fire, through iron, through the shrieks of dying heroes. Ares returned, not out of loyalty, but out of habit. He no longer believed in Olympus. He believed in consequence. The gods who once mocked him now sat trembling behind marble thrones, afraid of a war they could not win. And they asked him to bleed for them. Again, no apology, no acknowledgement, just need. And he did what he always did. He stood at the edge of destruction and became its shape. But something had shifted. The screams no longer filled him. The blood no longer baptized. The rage remained, but the purpose was hollow. He moved like a shadow in armor, faster than any mortal could see, stronger than any force they unleashed. But in every kill, he saw the healer, her hands, her eyes, her silence. He remembered how she never asked for war, and now he was the reason others like her would die. The gods cheered as Ares carved victory from carnage, but he didn't stay to celebrate. He walked into the smoke, alone. The mortals built monuments in his name, but they built them out of fear, not reverence. Statues with empty eyes, altars with offerings made from guilt. And he saw it. He saw the same story replaying, endlessly. They wanted strength, until it scared them. They wanted a god to blame, until he asked to be understood. They wanted war, as long as it wasn't near their own homes. And Ares, he gave them all of it. Every war, every scream, every cost. And in return, they wrote songs about heroes who survived, but not about the god who watched them die. He once tried to speak to Athena, not with anger, but with honesty. He told her he didn't want to be this, that he envied her clarity, her poise, her purpose. She looked at him and said nothing, only turned her back. And that cut deeper than any blade ever had. Because for all his violence, all his chaos, he still wanted something no battlefield could give him: forgiveness. He wandered the earth for decades, not as a god, but as a man with too many memories. Sometimes he helped, sometimes he destroyed, sometimes he simply watched, the way others loved, and lost, and learned to begin again. And he wondered, could a god like him ever begin again? Or was he only the ending to every story the world wanted to forget? They say gods never die, but Ares began to vanish, not in body, but in memory. The temples grew quiet. The priests stopped chanting. Even the wars began to speak other names. And yet, he remained. Not in Olympus, not in myth, but in places no one wanted to look. In the rage behind a quiet face, in the fist that tightens before the tears come, in the voice that says nothing because it was never heard. He became the god of silence, not peace, but the silence after screaming too long. He wandered ruins of empires built on the bones of men who swore by his name. He stood in fields where grass grew over old swords. He stared at skies that no longer split at his command. And he waited, not for war, but for understanding. Because after everything, after every battle, after every blood-drenched sunrise, all he ever wanted was to not be alone. But gods born in isolation do not forget their origin. He found a cave once, deep in a mountain, where no prayers reached. And there, he took off his armor, piece by piece, not because he felt safe, but because he was too tired to carry it. He placed his helmet beside the bones of some forgotten beast, his shield near the fire that would not light. And he sat, not as a god, but as a boy who had never been held, never been chosen, only used. And in that stillness, he did something no one thought he could. He wept, not loudly, not proudly, but like the first rain after a 1,000-year drought. Each tear, a memory of a mother who never sang, of a father who never came, of a world that made him a weapon, then feared him for obeying. The earth did not shake, the stars did not fall. Only a breeze moved through the cave, and Ares breathed. For the first time in centuries, he breathed without bracing, and in that breath, he found a truth no war had ever given him, that even gods break, and it is in the breaking that we become real. He stood, picked up his helmet, but left the shield, because not every battle is worth returning to. And as he walked into the dark, something followed him. Not a soldier, not a flame, but the echo of that healer's voice, soft, steady. You are not what they made you. And for the first time, Ares believed it. This is God and demon, where even the gods of rage carry hearts too loud for silence, and wounds too sacred to ever close. If this story moved something in you, if somewhere inside the war still echoes, like, share and subscribe and walk with us into the next myth. Because here, even the most violent gods still bleed. Ituri. Based on Greek mythology, some elements have been reimagined for emotional and cinematic storytelling purposes.